Managing Diversity Final Project Presentation, Sarah Clark. The organization that I chose for my change project is the Muckleshoot Tribal School, which is located on the Muckleshoot Indian Reservation in Auburn, Washington. We are a K-12 school, which consists of 4 buildings, and we have just under 600 students. The majority of the students who attend the school are Muckleshoot tribal members. There are other students who are native. However, they aren't Muckleshoot. They belong to various other tribes, either from the Northwest or from other areas in the United States. There are a handful of students who attend the school that are the children of employees that work for the school. Only around 25% of the employees that work for the school are Native American. The majority of the people who work there are either Caucasian, African American, or Asian, or a mixture of several different ethnicities. So I'm not going to read the problem statement word for word, but to summarize, the Muckleshoot tribe hires various people with various ethnic backgrounds to support their school and actually several different components of the tribe itself. But at our school, the majority of the people who work there are non-native, and our students are, the majority of which are Native American. However, they're mixed with Caucasian ancestry, African American, Asian, Polynesian, all number of different cultures, and very few people or Native Americans left actually are 100% Native, especially just for one tribe. However, we don't discuss or teach or put a emphasis on different cultures or diversity of any kind. We do put a huge emphasis on teaching our students traditional ways of Native American people and language and histories, accurate histories, and that's a huge part of our curriculum. However, we don't discuss their Asian background, their African American background, their Caucasian background. It's not emphasized. And diversity, as we know from research, states that it's important in an organization. It actually increases creativity, it decreases rollover and gaps in employment, and it really, really adds to the environment that you're working in. However, when you have people working in a organization from diverse backgrounds, there's a chance that you're going to have microaggressions and implicit bias, and that can be really, really harmful. However, we don't discuss those things. That is not a part of our training and working at the school. And so I wanted to look at creating a diversity training that would support and create respectful exchange and learning about different cultures in our school, as well as continue to emphasize the importance of focusing on the Native American aspect of our school. This is a tribal school, and that has to be the focus. The model or the framework that I wanted to use for this project was Lewin's change model. And what I really liked about this is that it was just 3 pieces, and it gives this really beautiful illustration of how the process itself works. So the first stage is unfreeze, and what this is thinking is that everyone has their preconceived notions of diversity and other groups and what that means, and the unfreeze stage is where you provide people with information and you allow them to recognize that there's a need for change, and you encourage replacement of new attitudes and behaviors, and you provide support for that. And during that process, people begin to unfreeze their previous notions of thinking and get ready for the second stage, which is change or to transition. And this is when you start plugging in the new knowledge. So you start putting this plan into action, and you implement changes in your organization, and you help your employees learn the new points of view and all about diversity and how important it is. And then the third stage is to refreeze, where the changes are reinforced and they become permanent. So what was training now becomes just the normal way that we do things. And then actions are put into place to make sure that you can stabilize that change and make it permanent. An important piece of this is to celebrate success. So the change plan has 3 different stages. So For my organization, the plan during the unfreeze is to email outlining diversity training, followed by shortly a meeting led by the superintendent, followed with a meeting held by the building principals, follow up again with a Q&A document. This is filling in any gaps in understanding. It's important to understand that there will be resistance from some of the employees, and you have to provide as much support and information as possible to try to keep that as a minimal and, get rid of it as soon as possible, kind of squash it as it riles up. You have to continue with diversity trainings and support structures. Multiple surveys, interviews will be used to ensure tailored trainings for the support. So by that I mean that every organization is different, and it's important during the process of unfreezing mindsets that in providing people with new knowledge and training, that it's very specific to our organization. So you'll survey people, did you get what you needed out of it? What are your wonderings? Do we need to focus on something more? Interview people to find out how they're feeling, really what they need, and then tailor your training and the support to meet those needs. As well as creating a train-the-trainer opportunities, the best thing you can do is get other people in the organization involved in this process. So it's not just outside entities or even administration providing these trainings and asking for change. It's the people that you work with. The second stage in the change plan is the transition part. So this is where you're going to acknowledge, celebrate, and value the different people in your organization, their beliefs, their cultural backgrounds. You're going to celebrate diversity. You're going to make sure that everyone has equal access to resources for diversity and opportunities for training and for support. And you want to make sure that while the training continues, that there are enough support structures in place to keep everyone comfortable, to answer all the questions, to make sure people understand that they're valued. And we're going to continue that process with surveys throughout the entire event to make sure that people understand everything that's going on, and they know that they're heard, and that the change leaders, those who are in charge of putting this into place, will know exactly what people need. The third stage is refreezing, where things become permanent and in place. This is just the way we do things now. And this is where we will continue with more surveys and follow-up trainings to make sure that everything is working smoothly. And also it's important to expect that resistance once again and expect to be patient during that process. And I keep saying that because over and over again in the research I've read, they keep saying we keep training people, provide them with information, but for some people, information 3 times, 4 times, 5 times isn't enough. They need a lot of time to process these changes, to work through their own feelings. We aren't just asking them to change who they are at work, we're asking them to modify their thoughts, beliefs, actions, and feelings. And that takes a lot of time, takes more follow-up trainings and a lot of check-ins from administration to make sure that everything is working according to the original plan. Did it work? So after the process of going through the change plan, we need to find out whether or not it was successful. So using Prosky's ADKR model, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, we can use it to find out whether or not this change plan was successful. So under awareness, we have to make sure, do our employees at the end of this process, do they understand why there was a need for change? Also, do they have the desire to continue to participate in the change process? And is there enough support for that change? Is there the knowledge on what they need to do in order to change? Asking them if they understand that there's a need to change and making sure that they have the willingness to change doesn't do much good if they don't know how to do it. Do they have the ability? Do they have the skills? Are they in the right place emotionally to make those kind of changes? And then is there reinforcement structures put into place to make sure that this change becomes permanent? So using different interviews and surveys throughout the following year will make sure that these changes are put into place and they become permanent structures. It was also a suggestion in an earlier paper that I wrote that administrators incorporate the change process into their observations? Do you see these things happening in team collaborative meetings? Are we teaching about diversity in our classroom? What changes have taken place in our school to provide evidence that the change has taken place and has become permanent? Here are my references. Thank you for listening.